The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Vorgan pirate ship, its sleek, predatory form cutting through the darkness like a knife. Inside the vessel's holding bay, a tiny figure sat calmly amidst the chaos of his recent capture. Zix, barely the size of a human hand, observed his captors with keen, multifaceted eyes that gleamed with intelligence far beyond their comprehension. Captain Draz, a hulking Vorgan with mottled green skin and a face etched with battle scars, loomed over the diminutive prisoner. His laughter, a guttural sound that reverberated through the chamber, was echoed by his crew. "Is this what the mighty Galactic Alliance sends to stop us? A bug?" He sneered, baring rows of jagged teeth. Zix remained unfazed, his antennae twitching slightly as he processed the situation. When he spoke, his voice was surprisingly clear and authoritative, despite its high pitch. "I would advise against underestimating me, Captain, or my partner." This elicited another round of raucous laughter from the Vorgans. "Partner?" Draz guffawed, clutching his armored belly. What kind of partner would align themselves with such an insignificant creature? "A human," Zix replied simply, his compound eyes fixed steadily on the captain. The laughter died abruptly, replaced by a tense silence. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for their adaptability, unpredictability, and surprising strength in the face of adversity. While not the most technologically advanced species, their tenacity and ingenuity had earned them a reputation that gave even hardened pirates, like the Vorgans, pause. Draz's expression darkened, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features before he masked it with a sneer. "A human? Bah! They're soft, emotional creatures, no match for Vorgan might." One of the crew members, a lithe female named Vex, stepped forward. "Captain, perhaps we should take precautions, if a human really is coming." "Silence!" Draz roared, backhanding Vex with enough force to send her stumbling. "We are Vorgans. We fear no one, especially not some human and their insect pet." Zix watched the exchange with interest, filing away every detail. Despite his tranquil demeanor, his mind raced, already formulating plans and contingencies. He knew Sarah would come for him. Their bond transcended mere partnership. It was a symphony of minds, a connection that defied the barriers of species and biology. "You speak of might," Zix said calmly, drawing the Vorgan's attention back to him. "But true strength lies not in brute force, but in unity and adaptability, qualities you seem to lack, Captain." Draz's face contorted with rage. He reached for Zix, his massive hand closing around the tiny alien's body. "I will crush you, insect," he snarled. But as his fingers tightened, something extraordinary happened. Zix's exoskeleton began to glow with an otherworldly light, and Draz felt a searing pain shoot up his arm. He released Zix with a howl, staggering backward. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded, nursing his burnt hand. Zix landed gracefully on the floor, the glow fading. "As I said, it would be unwise to underestimate me. My species, the Arcturians, have evolved defenses against such crude attacks." For the first time, a flicker of fear passed through the eyes of the Vorgan crew. They had heard tales of the Arcturians, a race of tiny but immensely powerful beings whose technology and mental abilities were said to rival those of the legendary precursors. Draz, however, was too proud to show weakness. "Throw it in the break," he ordered. "We'll see how tough this Arcturian is when we start pulling off those pretty wings." Two Vorgans moved to grab Zix, this time using insulated gloves to protect themselves. As they carried him away, Zix locked eyes with Draz one last time. "Captain, I implore you to reconsider your course of action. Release me now, and we can part ways peacefully. Continue on this path, and I cannot guarantee your safety when my partner arrives." Draz spat on the ground. "Save your threats, bug. Your human friend will find nothing but death if they dare to challenge us." As Zix was led to the break, he reached out with his mind, sending a telepathic message across the vast distances of space. "Sarah, I'm being held on a Vorgan pirate ship. Coordinates to follow." Be cautious, my friend. These beings are dangerous and monumentally foolish. Light years away, Captain Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her command chair aboard the Nebula Streak, her eyes wide as Zix's message resonated in her mind. A slow smile spread across her face, a mix of relief at knowing her friend was alive and anticipation for the challenge ahead. "All right, Zix," she murmured, her fingers dancing across the ship's controls. "I'm on my way. Hold tight, little buddy." The Nebula Streak's engines flared to life, propelling the sleek craft into hyperdrive. As stars blurred into streaks of light around her, Sarah's mind raced with plans and strategies. The Vorkans had no idea what they'd just brought upon themselves. Back on the pirate ship, Zix sat peacefully in his cell, his antennae twitching occasionally as he processed the wealth of information he'd gathered during his capture. The Vorkan ship was old, its systems a patchwork of stolen technology. Vulnerabilities abounded, each one a potential key to their downfall. As he settled in to wait, Zix allowed himself a small smile. The Vorkans, in their arrogance, had made a grave mistake. They had assumed that his size reflected his worth, that his calm demeanor indicated weakness. They would soon learn the error of their ways, for Zix was not merely a captive, nor was he helpless. He was a beacon, a lure drawing a force the Vorkans could scarcely comprehend. In underestimating him, they had sealed their fate. The tiny Arcturian closed his eyes, conserving his energy for the battle to come. In the vastness of space, a ship piloted by one of the most formidable humans in the galaxy was hurtling towards them, carrying with it a reckoning the Vorkan pirates would not soon forget. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion, and at the center of it all, a being no larger than a human's palm waited patiently, knowing that size was no measure of strength, and that the greatest power lay not in brute force, but in the unbreakable bond between unlikely friends. The pursuit. The Nebula Streak cut through space like a silver arrow, its sleek form belying the raw power contained within. At the helm, Captain Sarah Chen's eyes blazed with determination, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls with practiced ease. The ship's AI, Araya, monitored their progress. "Captain, we are approaching the coordinates provided by Zix," Araya's melodic voice announced. "Estimated time to intercept, 47 minutes. Sarah nodded, a grim smile playing on her lips. "Thanks, Araya. Begin passive scans of the region. Let's see what we're up against." As the AI complied, Sarah's mind drifted to her first encounter with Zix. It had been during a routine diplomatic mission to Arcturus Prime. She'd been fascinated by the tiny beings and their advanced technology. But it was Zix, with his quick wit and insatiable curiosity about humans, who had truly captured her attention. Their friendship had been instantaneous, defying all expectations. Where others saw an insurmountable gap between their species, Sarah and Zix found common ground. His vast intelligence complemented her intuition and adaptability. Together, they had become one of the most effective teams in the Galactic Alliance. Scan complete. ARI interrupted her reverie. "I've detected a Vorgan signature matching known pirate vessels. They appear to be experiencing some technical difficulties." Sarah's eyebrow arched. Technical difficulties. Indeed, their power systems are fluctuating wildly. Life support is stable, but weapons and propulsion are intermittent. A chuckle escaped Sarah's lips. "That's my Zix. Always working angles I can't even see." She leaned forward, fingers flying over the controls. "Araya, plot an approach vector that keeps us in their sensor blind spots. We're going in quiet." As the Nebula Streak adjusted course, Sarah began prepping her gear. She slipped into a sleek exosuit, its surface shimmering with adaptive camouflage. A neural interface connected the suit directly to her mind, allowing for split-second reactions. "Hey, Araya," Sarah called out as she checked her weapons. "How about some music? Something with a beat. I've got a rescue to plan." The ship's speakers came to life with a pulsing rhythm, and Sarah grinned. It was time to show these Vorgans why taking her partner was the biggest mistake they'd ever made. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorgan ship, chaos reigned. Captain Draz stormed onto the bridge, his face a mask of fury. "What in the name of the void is happening to my ship?" he roared. The crew scrambled to respond, fingers flying over malfunctioning consoles. Vex, sporting a bruise from Draz's earlier outburst, spoke up. "Captain, we're experiencing cascading system failures. It's as if the ship is fighting against itself." Draz's eyes narrowed. "The bug," he growled. "It must be behind this somehow." He whirled on his security chief. "Grok, get down to the brig and make sure our guest isn't up to any tricks." Grok, a mountain of muscle and scars, nodded and lumbered off. But as he approached the brig, an unsettling sight greeted him. Zix sat serenely in his cell, seemingly meditation. Yet all around him, the ship's systems sparked and sputtered. "You," Grok bellowed. "What are you doing to our ship?" Zix's eyes opened slowly, regarding the Vorgan with calm interest. "I'm doing nothing, my large friend. Your ship, however, seems to be having a crisis of conscience. Perhaps it's realized the error of associating with pirates." Grok's hand went to his weapon, but before he could draw it, the lights in the corridor flickered and died. In the darkness, Zix's voice echoed with an almost amused tone. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. In this darkness, you're as likely to shoot yourself as me." Back on the bridge, Draz was reaching his breaking point. "Get those systems back online," he shouted, "and someone tell me we still have weapons." As if in answer, a proximity alarm blared. Vex's eyes widened as she studied her console. "Captain, we have an incoming ship. It's coming in fast." Draz rushed to the view screen, his face paling as he saw the sleek form of the nebula streak emerging from the darkness of space. "Impossible," he whispered. "How did they find us so quickly?" On the nebula streak, Sarah allowed herself a predatory grin. "Araya, open a channel to the Vorgan ship." The AI complied, and Sarah's voice boomed across the Vorgan bridge. "Attention Vorgan vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Galactic Alliance. You are holding my partner against his will. Return him to me immediately, or face the consequences." Draz's shock quickly gave way to bravado. "You dare threaten us, human? We are Vorgans. We bow to no one." Sarah's laughter, cold and dangerous, filled the Vorgan bridge. "Oh, I'm not threatening you, Captain. I'm giving you a chance to surrender. A courtesy you don't deserve after taking my friend." As if to punctuate her words, the nebula streak fired a warning shot that skimmed the Vorgan ship's hull, leaving a scorched trail in its wake. Draz's face contorted with rage. "All batteries, open fire," he commanded. But as the Vorgan gunners tried to comply, their weapons sputtered and died. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and the lights flickered ominously. In the brig, Zix allowed himself a small smile. His sabotage was working perfectly. The Vorgan ship's systems, already a patchwork of stolen technology, had been easy to infiltrate with his advanced mental abilities. Now it was turning against its masters, becoming an unwilling ally in his escape. "Your ship seems unwell, Captain." Sarah's voice came again, dripping with false concern. "Perhaps you should focus on repairs rather than futile attacks." Draz's reply was lost in a string of untranslatable curses. He turned to his crew, desperation evident in his eyes. "Get us out of here. Full power to engines." But the engines, like everything else on the ship, refused to cooperate. The Vorgan vessel hung dead in space, a sitting target for the nebula streak. Sarah's voice, when it came again, was steel wrapped in silk. "Last chance, Captain. Release Zix, or I start taking your ship apart piece by piece. And trust me, what I'll do to it will make your little mechanical problems seem like a pleasant dream." As Draz weighed his options, Sarah prepared for her assault. She knew Zix could take care of himself, but she was taking no chances with her friend's safety. The Vorgans were about to learn a harsh lesson about the folly of underestimating their opponents, be they small aliens or determined humans. The hunt was over. Now, the real battle was about to begin. The confrontation. The tension between the two ships crackled like electricity in the vacuum of space. On the bridge of the nebula streak, Sarah Chen's fingers hovered over the weapon's controls, her body coiled and ready for action. The Vorgan ship hung before her, a wounded beast cornered and desperate. "ARIA. Status report," Sarah commanded, her eyes never leaving the view screen. The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. "The Vorgan vessel remains incapacitated, Captain. Their shields are down, weapons offline. However, I'm detecting increased activity in their hangar bay. They may be preparing to launch fighters." Sarah's lips curled into a predatory smile. "Trying to even the odds, are they? Not gonna happen." Her fingers flew across the console. "ARIA. Deploy countermeasures. I want those hangar doors sealed shut." "Deploying now, Captain," ARIA confirmed. Outside, a swarm of tiny drones erupted from the nebula streak, zipping towards the Vorgan ship. They latched onto the hangar bay doors, their laser cutters slicing through the mechanisms, welding them shut. On the Vorgan bridge, Captain Draz watched in horror as his last option for counterattack was neutralized. "Impossible," he growled, smashing his fist against a malfunctioning console. "How can one human ship outmaneuver us like this?" Vex, the female Vorgan, spoke up hesitantly. "Captain, perhaps we should consider the humans' offer. Our ship is crippled. We're outgunned." "Silence," Draz roared, backhanding her across the face. "We are Vorgans. We do not surrender." As if in response to his defiance, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as a new voice echoed through the corridors, a high-pitched, yet commanding tone that sent chills down the spines of the Vorgan crew. "I warned you this would happen, Captain Draz," Zix's voice reverberated through the ship's comm system. "You chose to ignore me. Now you face the consequences of your arrogance." In the brig, Zix stood calmly in the center of his cell, his tiny form belying the power he wielded. The cell's force field flickered and died, and the door slid open. Zix stepped out, his compound eyes taking in the chaos around him. "Apologies for the discomfort," he said to no one in particular, "but some lessons must be learned the hard way." Back on the nebula streak, Sarah grinned as she heard Zix's voice. "That's my cue," she muttered. "ARIA. You have the con. Keep their attention focused on the main hull. I'm going in." "Understood, Captain," ARIA replied. "Be careful." Sarah made her way to the airlock, her exosuit adapting to the environment, rendering her nearly invisible. As she stepped into the void of space, magnetic boots keeping her anchored to the hull, she felt a thrill of excitement. This was where she thrived, in the heat of action, the impossible odds, the dance between life and death. Using maneuvering thrusters, she propelled herself towards the Vorgan ship. As she neared, she could see the damage Zix's sabotage had wrought. Panels hung loose, sparks flew from ruptured conduits, and the once fearsome vessel now looked like a derelict waiting to be scrapped. "Zix, buddy, you really did a number on this rust bucket," Sarah muttered, impressed. As if hearing her thoughts, Zix's voice came through her comms. "Sarah, I've unlocked an access hatch on the port side, near the aft section. You should be able to enter undetected there." "Roger that. Good to hear your voice, partner. Hang tight. I'm coming." Sarah made her way to the designated hatch, her suit's sensors alert for any signs of danger. As promised, the hatch slid open at her approach, and she slipped inside the Vorgan ship. The interior was chaos. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie red glow, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of burnt circuitry. Sarah moved silently, her suit's camouflage keeping her hidden from the panicked Vorgans rushing past. On the bridge, Draz was losing control of his ship and his crew. "Find the bug," he bellowed. "Tear this ship apart if you have to, but bring it to me." Vex, nursing her bruised face, exchanged worried glances with the other crew members. The captain's obsession was going to get them all killed. As Sarah made her way deeper into the ship, she encountered pockets of resistance. Vorgan's security teams, more focused on finding Zix than defending against external threats, were caught off guard by her swift, silent attacks. Non-lethal shots from her stun pistol dropped them before they could raise the alarm. "Zix," Sarah whispered into her comm. "I'm inside." "Where are you?" "Making my way to you, Sarah," came the reply. "Be cautious. Captain Draz is unstable. He may do something drastic." As if on cue, Draz's voice boomed through the ship's speakers. "Attention, human intruder. I know you're here. Show yourself, or I'll space every prisoner on this ship, including your precious bug." Sarah's blood ran cold. She knew Draz was capable of such an act. "Zix, change of plans. Head to the bridge. I'll meet you there." "Understood. Be careful, Sarah." Sarah doubled her pace, her mind racing. She needed to end this quickly, before Draz made good on his threat. As she neared the bridge, she heard the sounds of a scuffle. Peering around a corner, she saw a group of Vorgans surrounding a small, glowing figure. Zix was putting up a valiant fight, his body emanating pulses of energy that kept the Vorgans at bay. But he was outnumbered, and Sarah could see he was tiring. Without hesitation, she leaped into action. Her stun pistol sang, dropping 2 Vorgans before they knew what hit them. The others turned, confused by the attack from behind. "Zix, duck," Sarah yelled, and her tiny partner complied instantly. Sarah triggered her suit's sonic disruptor, sending a wave of debilitating sound washing over the Vorgans. They collapsed, clutching their ears in agony. In the moment of chaos, Sarah scooped up Zix, cradling him protectively as she made a dash for the bridge. "Cutting it a bit close, weren't you?" Zix quipped, his antennae twitching with amusement. Sarah grinned. "You know me. I like to make an entrance." They burst onto the bridge, Sarah's pistol trained on Captain Draz. The Vorgan leader stood by the main console, his hand hovering over a large red button, the control for the airlocks. "Not one more step." Draz snarled, his eyes wild with desperation. Sarah assessed the situation in an instant. Draz was unhinged, dangerous. The rest of the bridge crew looked terrified, more afraid of their captain than the intruders. "It's over, Draz," Sarah said calmly. "Your ship is crippled. Your crew is beaten. Surrender now, and I promise you'll be treated fairly." Draz's laughter was harsh, bordering on hysterical. "Fairly? There's no fair for Vorgans in your precious Galactic Alliance. We take what we want. That's our way." "Your way is finished," Zix spoke up, his tiny voice filled with authority. "The galaxy has no place for those who prey on the weak, but there is a place for those who seek redemption." For a moment, uncertainty flickered in Draz's eyes. Then, with a roar of defiance, he slammed his hand down on the button. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. But instead of the expected rush of escaping air, there was only silence. Zix's antennae twitched in what Sarah recognized as his equivalent of a smirk. "Did you really think I'd leave that system active, Captain?" Draz's face crumpled in defeat. As Sarah moved to restrain him, the rest of the bridge crew practically fell over themselves to surrender. As the adrenaline of the confrontation faded, Sarah looked down at her tiny partner, perched on her shoulder. "Nice work on the sabotage, buddy. Couldn't have done it without you." Zix's compound eyes gleamed with affection. "Nor I without you, Sarah. We do make a rather effective team, don't we?" Sarah grinned, already thinking about their next adventure. "That we do, Zix. That we do." The escape with Captain Draz and his bridge crew subdued, Sarah and Zix found themselves in control of the Vorgan ship, but their victory was far from complete. Alarms still blared throughout the vessel, and the damage from Zix's sabotage had left critical systems on the brink of failure. Sarah called into her comm. "Status report on the Vorgan vessel." The AI's voice came through clear despite the interference. "Captain, the Vorgan ship is in critical condition. Life support is failing, and the reactor is showing signs of instability. I estimate no more than 30 minutes before catastrophic failure. Sarah's expression hardened. She turned to Zix, who was perched on a nearby console, his antennae twitching as he processed the information. Looks like we got a new problem, partner. Any ideas? Zix's compound eyes flickered with rapid calculations. The ship's condition is worse than I anticipated. My sabotage, combined with the Vorgon's haphazard repairs, has created a cascade of system failures. He paused, his tiny form seeming to deflate slightly. I fear I may have been overzealous in my efforts to aid our escape. Sarah placed a reassuring finger gently on Zix's back. Hey, you did what you had to do. We're alive, and that's what matters. Now let's focus on getting everyone out of here safely. Zix nodded, his antennae perking up with renewed determination. Agreed. We'll need to evacuate the ship, but the nebula streak doesn't have the capacity to hold all the Vorgons, and we can't just leave them here to die. Sarah added, her mind racing. She turned to the subdued Vorgon crew. Does this ship have escape pods? Vex, the female Vorgon who had shown signs of reason earlier, spoke up. Yes, but Drads had them disabled to prevent desertion. Sarah muttered a curse under her breath. Of course he did. Zix, can you get them back online? The tiny alien was already moving, his wings buzzing as he flew towards an access panel. I believe so, but it will take time. Time we don't have in abundance. Right. Sarah nodded. She pointed at Vex. You, what's your name? Vex, the Vorgon replied, standing a little straighter. Okay, Vex. I need you to organize your crew. Get everyone to the escape pod bays. Can you do that? Vex hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. Yes, I can. As Vex began coordinating the evacuation, Sarah turned her attention to the ship's systems. She may not have had Zix's technical expertise, but years of working together had taught her a thing or two about jury-rigging alien tech. "RIA," she called out, "I'm going to try and stabilize the reactor. Feed me diagnostics." What followed was a frantic race against time. Sarah's fingers flew over alien controls, her exosuit's neural interface translating Vorgon technology into something she could understand. Zix, meanwhile, darted from system to system, his size allowing him access to areas no one else could reach. The minutes ticked by, each one bringing them closer to disaster. Sweat beaded on Sarah's brow as she rerouted power, shut down non-essential systems, and fought to keep the ship together long enough for everyone to escape. Escape pods are online, Zix announced, his tiny voice filled with triumph. Sarah allowed herself a moment of relief before the ship shuddered violently, nearly throwing her off her feet. Not a moment too soon. Araya. Status. Reactor containment is failing, Captain. The AI reported. Detonation imminent. Recommend immediate evacuation. You heard her. Sarah shouted to the Vorgons still on the bridge. Everyone to the escape pods. Now. As the crew scrambled to obey, Sarah realized with a sinking feeling that someone would need to remain behind to ensure all the pods launched successfully. She opened her mouth to volunteer, but Zix beat her to it. I'll stay, the tiny alien said, his voice firm. My size makes me the logical choice. I can move through the ship quickly and ensure all systems function for the launch. Sarah felt her heart clench. Zix, no. It's too dangerous. I can't leave you behind. Zix's antennae brushed against her cheek in a gesture of affection. My dear Sarah, have faith. I have no intention of sacrificing myself. I merely have the highest probability of success in this endeavor. Before Sarah could argue further, another violent tremor shook the ship. Klaxons wailed as the reactor edged closer to critical mass. Go, Zix urged. Get the others to safety. I promise I'll be right behind you. With a heavy heart, Sarah nodded. She knew Zix was right, but leaving him felt wrong on a fundamental level. You'd better keep that promise, partner, she said, her voice thick with emotion. As Sarah herded the last of the Vorgons into the escape pods, she kept in constant communication with Zix. His calm voice in her ear was the only thing keeping her from turning back. All pods are away, Zix reported as the last group launched. I'm heading to the final pod now. Copy that, Sarah replied, her pod already streaking away from the doomed ship. What's your ETA? There was a moment of silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. Then, slight problem. The launch mechanism for the final pod is jammed. I'm attempting to override. His words were cut off as a massive explosion lit up space behind them. The Vorgon ship erupted in a spectacular fireball, the shockwave buffeting the escape pods. Zix! Sarah screamed, her heart stopping. Zix, come in. For several agonizing seconds, there was only static. Then, faintly, she heard a familiar buzzing sound. A tiny shape zipped past her pod's view screen. Zix, using his wings and some kind of personal force field to navigate the debris field. Sarah's pod's airlock opened automatically, admitting the exhausted Arcturian. As soon as he was inside, Sarah scooped him up, holding him close. Don't you ever scare me like that again, she admonished, relief making her voice shake. Zix's antennae drooped with fatigue, but his eyes sparkled with his usual humor. I did promise I'd be right behind you, didn't I? Sarah laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. That you did, partner. That you did. As the adrenaline of their narrow escape began to fade, Sarah turned her attention to the scattered pods around them. ARIA, begin recovery operations. Let's get everyone aboard the Nebula Streak. Affirmative, Captain. The AI responded. Recovery drones deployed. Sarah leaned back in her seat, Zix nestled safely in her hands. They had survived, against all odds. But as she watched the Nebula Streak approach, Sarah knew their adventure was far from over. The real challenge, deciding what to do with a ship full of reformed Vorgon pirates, was just beginning. The aftermath. The Nebula Streak hummed quietly as it cruised through space. It told unusually full. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport, watching the stars streak by, her mind racing with the events of the past few days. Beside her, perched on a custom-built hovering platform, Zix sat in contemplative silence. Captain. Aria's voice broke the quiet. We are approaching Starbase 47. ETA 20 minutes. Sarah nodded. Thanks, Aria. Alert our guests and prepare for docking procedures. As Aria acknowledged the order, Sarah turned to her diminutive partner. Well, Zix, we've gotten ourselves into quite the situation this time, haven't we? Zix's antennae twitched in what Sarah recognized as amusement. Indeed we have, my friend. Though I must say, it's rarely dull when we're together. Sarah chuckled, but her laughter faded as she considered the challenge ahead. In the ship's hold were dozens of Vorgon pirates, former enemies turned reluctant allies. The decision of what to do with them weighed heavily on her mind. We should speak with them before we dock, Zix suggested, his compound eyes flickering with rapid thoughts. Their fate hangs in the balance, and they deserve to know where they stand. Sarah nodded in agreement. You're right. Let's go. They made their way to the cargo hold, now serving as makeshift quarters for the Vorgons. As they entered, all eyes turned to them, some fearful, others curious, a few still defiant. Vex, the female Vorgon who had helped during their escape, stepped forward. Captain Chen, what's to become of us? Sarah took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping across the assembled aliens. That depends on you. You were pirates, enemies of the Galactic Alliance. By law, you should all face trial and imprisonment. A murmur of discontent rippled through the crowd, but Sarah held up her hand for silence. However, she continued, your actions during our escape and your willingness to cooperate since then have not gone unnoticed. Zix and I are prepared to speak on your behalf, to argue for leniency, if you're willing to make a change. Zix floated forward, his tiny form commanding attention despite his size. "The galaxy is vast and full of wonders," he said, his high-pitched voice carrying clearly through the hold. "There are opportunities for those willing to seek them out, to use their skills for the betterment of all rather than personal gain at others' expense." The Vorgons exchanged glances, uncertainty clear on their faces. Generations of piracy and violence were not easy to leave behind. Vex spoke up again, her voice hesitant but determined. What would this change entail?" Sarah smiled encouragingly. "Rehabilitation, education, a chance to learn new skills and find legitimate work. It won't be easy, but it's a chance at a new life, one where you're not constantly looking over your shoulder for the law or rival pirates." A gruff voice cut through the murmurs. "And what of Draz? Will he get this second chance too?" It was Grok, the former security chief, his scared face twisted with a mix of anger and concern. Sarah's expression hardened. "Captain Draz will face trial for his actions. His willingness to endanger his entire crew, his refusal to surrender even when outmatched, these speak to a level of disregard for life that cannot be overlooked." The hold fell silent as the Vorgons processed this information. Sarah could see the conflict in their eyes, the pull of their old life versus the promise of something new, something potentially better. Zix, sensing the tension, spoke up. "Change is never easy," he said, his antennae moving in soothing patterns. "But consider this. The skills that made you formidable pirates, your adaptability, your teamwork, your technical knowledge, these are valuable in many legitimate fields. You could be explorers, traders, even peacekeepers." Sarah nodded in agreement. "The choice is yours. We'll speak to the authorities at Starbase 47, argue for this rehabilitation program, but it only works if you're committed to it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, Vex stepped forward. "I'm willing to try," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I've seen enough violence, enough fear. If there's a chance for something different, I want to take it." One by one, other Vorgons began to nod, to step forward, to voice their agreement. Not all. Sarah could see a few holdouts, their faces set in stubborn lines, but most seemed willing to at least consider the offer. As they neared Starbase 47, Sarah and Zix returned to the bridge, both lost in thought. "Do you think it'll work?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. "Can they really change?" Zix was quiet for a moment, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "I believe in the capacity for growth and change in all sentient beings," he said finally. "It will not be easy, and not all will succeed. But the opportunity for redemption should never be withheld from those who truly seek it." Sarah smiled, reaching out to gently stroke Zix's back. "When did you get so wise, little guy?" Zix's antennae twitched in amusement. "I've always been wise, Sarah. You're just finally starting to notice." They shared a laugh as the nebula streak began its docking procedures. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The unlikeliest of partners, united by a bond stronger than any difference in size or species. As they prepared to disembark, Sarah felt a sense of anticipation. This mission had started as a simple rescue, but it had turned into something much more. A chance to make a real difference, to potentially turn former enemies into allies. "Ready for our next adventure, partner?" she asked Zix, who had taken his customary place on her shoulder. The tiny alien's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Always, Sarah. The galaxy awaits, full of possibilities. And together, I believe we're ready for anything it might throw our way." With a shared nod of determination, they stepped off the nebula streak and onto Starbase 47, ready to argue for second chances, to push for understanding, and to continue their journey as the most unexpected and effective team the Galactic Alliance had ever seen. The adventure was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning.